All right, so the first question that I got was around Trump's first administration and the behavior that he took toward Canada then. In particular, did he levy tariffs the first time around? The short answer is yes, he did, in particular on steel and aluminum, but they happened, first of all, the scope and the scale of them were much smaller than anything close to what he's levied now, but they happened in the context of NAFTA. So the primary driver of the trade relationship between Canada and the US during Trump's initial administration was all around NAFTA renegotiations. That kind of consumed that aspect of the relationship. And yes, there were tariffs employed, but and counter tariffs, I should say, but they very much happened within that context. They were nothing close to what is happening right now, which is a total kind of reimagining, according to Donald Trump, of trade policy through a tariff lens. Like that is very distinctly what he is doing this time around in order, in his view, to reform the US economy. It is not similar to utilizing them in a more specific way, not necessarily justified, but more specific way, the way in which it happened during those initial NAFTA renegotiations. A number of questions also about like where this goes from here. Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. I can't say. I do think, though, that what will be very interesting to find out is whether or not what we witnessed over the last number of days is kind of part of what gets to a deal, or whether it is not the ups and downs, dramatic ups and downs of a negotiation and something quite separate and more long lasting than that. Obviously, depending on which of those two avenues are pursued or which bears out, that will have a very direct impact on the potential impact of all of this on our economy. And we're already seeing some impacts, very distinct impacts. StatsCan, for example, reporting today that exports to the United States were down more than 7% in the second quarter of this year, which is the biggest drop since 2009, something like that. So very distinct impact on the economy already. And then finally, a question outside of all of the stuff around trade and more focused on backbenchers and whether, backbenchers 10 years ago had less power or more speaking voice than backbenchers right now. I think for the most part, we are still very much a centralized operation insofar as, it depends on the type of government, minority, majority, but ultimately those MPs will have more power around the caucus table than they do in the House of Commons. Still, parties very much speak with one voice. On some very rare issues, you will see backbenchers, for example, given a bigger platform and allowed to kind of toe their own line. But most of the time, the norm in our system has become you very much do toe the line. Thanks for your questions.